All right, ladies and gentlemen, we should be live here. Hoping this is true, just doing some final last minute checks of everything. But we should be good to go. All right, go to my channel here and see what's what. Yay, it says I'm live, sweet. Awesome. Cool. I have to use the chat for my phone because I don't know what's going on. First things first, I want to apologize in advance. There's going to be connection issues. I'm almost sure of it. I don't know what causes them. I don't know where they came from. I never used to have this issue, but my computer is old and every other excuse that I can come up with. It's something that's going to happen. But welcome to Super Koopa TV at Night, Thursday, December 19th, 2023. I hope everybody is doing well. I didn't really have a plan for tonight. In fact, I honestly forgot that tonight was live stream night until about 5 or 6 o'clock. And then it dawned on me, and I had to scramble to get everything ready. So I figure we'll start out by reading some Bounding into Comics and see what's going on here, because I haven't really spent much time on the website. I haven't been looking at any sort of pop culture headlines or watching any pop culture videos or really doing anything news related. I've just been trying to keep myself entertained in the midst of all of this chaos going on in the Middle East and the economy and just everything else that appears to be falling into chaos. So I wanted to start out with this article that I started to read earlier because I thought it was interesting. And I apologize again if the window is a little bit small, and for those who are listening on audio, DC Comics writer Tim Sheridan begs followers to purchase gay Alan Scott the Green Lantern series to own Comicsgate. DC Comics writer Tim Sheridan recently begged his followers to purchase copies of the upcoming Alan Scott the Green Lantern series in order to own Comicsgate members. The cover of this is admittedly pretty cool. I actually do like it. Although there's some parts of it that are a little weird, just in terms of choice. I don't know. Some of the quality on the lower half of Alan Scott here is a little questionable. Sheridan made his plea on X where he stated, "I'm here to ask you a favor. The book comes out next DC Tuesday, October 24th, but already the haters and queerphobes are out in force doing everything they can to see that this book tanks." What? Who is he talking about? I've not heard anybody saying anything about this book outside of what it's going to be. They use code and make it sound like they have legit problems with a book that they haven't read yet. Okay. All right. Here we go with the implication of code. They don't like it, therefore they're using code. This is one of the biggest, most pathetic copes I've ever seen. But we'll get to it once I'm finished with the article. But the truth is, they just don't like that there is a queer hero in the upper ranks of the DCU. That's not a problem for a lot of people. It is 2023, dude. Get over yourself. The only way we can shut these people down is to make this book an undeniable success, he continued. That is a pipe dream with modern DC. It doesn't matter what book it is. Comic books aren't selling. There's no interest. It's just not there. Okay, we'll get to that in the end. The only way to prove to the big publishers that there's a huge market for authentic stories about LGBTQ or STUVWXYZ characters, and these stories are for everyone, is to buy the heck out of books like this. Sheridan went on. This one's only 6 issues, and each one has a few variants, so I'm asking if you have the means, buy them up, buy extras, give to people who you really think need it. He then claimed that he would not pocket any additional profits from an assumed increase in sales for his pitch. And you might say this sounds like a great way for Tim Sheridan to make a bundle in royalties. Well, no. I won't make a penny because every single royalty I receive from these 6 issues will go straight to a charity that is very important to me and that I support for a long time, the Elton John AIDS Foundation, which works to prevent HIV stigma and provide compassionate care for all communities. I am asking you to join the Corps, he begged. If you care about truth, justice... Well, this isn't about the Corps. This is about Alan Scott. Isn't Alan Scott basically solo, from what I understand? Maybe I could be wrong about that. If you care about truth, justice, about shining light in the darkness, if you think comics are and should be continue to be for everyone, or if you just want to force these Comicsgate trolls back under the... Stop it. Back under the bridge they crawled out from, please support our book, and send a message that the bullying and the lies and the hate have to stop. Where's the hate? Tim Scott, where is it? It's certainly not coming from independent and Comicsgate people, I can tell you that much. He said everybody deserves to see themselves in comics. No, they don't. Everyone needs allies. No, they don't. And if you're an ally, now is the time to step up. We outnumber them. That is wishful thinking. The sales would prove otherwise, Timmy. The sales prove otherwise. People aren't buying your books. Even people who support you aren't buying your books. But again, we'll get to that in the end. So let's pool our power, vote with our wallets, and beat these a-holes. Add as many of these 4 variant color covers for Alan Scott the Green Lantern to your poll list today. Pick them up in store next week, Tuesday 24th. Thank you so much, he concluded. Oh boy, wow. In a subsequent post on X, he wrote, "For you innocents wondering what CG is, they're a hateful group of misogynistic, queerphobic, racist a-holes who actively work to take down comics with any hint of diversity." Some of that might fall under defamation, depending on who he's talking about. He's being general for a reason, because if he was to point out individual members of CG, that would fall under defamation, because I know for a fact that nobody that I've seen in CG, as he refers to it, is any of these things. They aren't, but he's accusing them of. They deserve a big loss. That would be the L I mentioned. No, actually, it wouldn't. A leaked page from the upcoming series obtained by Superhero Hype appears to depict FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover blackmailing Alan Scott into not only joining the fledgling Justice Society of America, but also into sexual escapades with himself. Fantastic, because that's what people want. They want a twisting of reality in such a way that, yeah. The page shows Hoover intimidating Scott with a photo of himself and another man in a homosexual embrace. Not only does it show Hoover blackmailing Scott, but Hoover also informs him, "Oh, we're also having a little get-together in Forest Hills this weekend. You'll come. Clyde will give you the details on your way out. And Alan, bring the combat boots." Really? Really? I think I talked about this book in the last stream. Clyde is most likely a reference to the real-life former FBI Associate Director Clyde Tolson, which biographers and historians have debated was Hoover's longtime homosexual lover. Yeah, it's debated. It's not confirmed, but don't let that stop any of these people. For instance, Richard Hack in his biography Puppet Master asserts that Hoover was not only homosexual, but Anthony Summers in his official and confidential The Secret Life of J. Edgar Hoover book claims he was a homosexual. He told ABC News he was a sadly repressed individual, but most people, even J. Edgar Hoover, let go on occasion. Sheridan denies that Hoover and Scott have relations in this series. He wrote on X, "I can't believe I even have to post this, but no, Alan Scott does not have sex with J. Edgar Hoover in our book. Hoover blackmails Green Lantern into working more closely with JSA. Yes, Hoover is creepy, but so are the a-holes posting misleading BS to keep you from reading." They've got the leaked pages where he blackmails him. So how do we know he doesn't? We haven't read that far into the book yet. As far as we know, Sheridan could be lying. We don't know anything. He added, and not to spoil anything, but just to be ever clear, Hoover tries to blackmail Green Lantern. Tries. Hoover trying to blackmail a prominent figure with compromising intel? Unheard of. Yeah, he thinks he's being smart there. While it's unclear at this point if the book will leave open the question of whether or not Hoover was blackmailing Scott into sexual relations, preview pages obtained by Bleeding Cool do show Scott engaging in sodomy with another man while in the Army in 1936. And I don't want to see that. Not only does it depict Alan Scott engaging in sodomy, but it mocks God with Scott's homosexual pandering, stating, "Hey, if God himself didn't want me to love you, then how could it, and why would he make me look so good in a ring?" These questions show a clear lack of understanding of Christian theology and teaching as well. Yeah, it certainly does. The Catechism of the Catholic Church states, but, okay, this is talking about Catholic stuff. I'm not a Catholic. And the act of sodomy is indeed a sin. In fact, one of many sins that cry to heaven, the Catechism states. Okay, that's more Catholic than evangelical Christianity. I don't know. Is this from John Trent? This is John Trent. So John's a Catholic. I always thought John was evangelical. Oh, well. That's something that we differ on. But here's my take with this, okay? Here's my take with this. Tim Sheridan, I almost said Tim Scott. Tim Sheridan is delusional. Tim Sheridan is absolutely delusional. He wants this book to sell. He knows it's not going to sell. So he is on X begging people to buy it, and he's doing so to try to dredge up Comicsgate, a thing that most people who were caught up in Comicsgate had forgotten about. Comicsgate creators have gone on to continue to create the books they want. They continue to crowdfund them. They continue to make them. Everything is fine. He's still trying to dredge things up because he's upset that part of his book got leaked, and he's already sweating because he knows it's going to make it so that it doesn't sell. He knows that DC readers as a whole are tired of the same 5 or 6 storylines, the same depictions of characters, the same taking of old characters and trying to portray them as if it's the modern day. And putting an overemphasis on their sexuality or their gender or their race. People are tired of that. And by virtue of me saying that, he will tell you, no, that's just code. That's just code, guys, for they don't like it. Or that's code for they don't like gay people or they don't like whatever. No, it's the honest truth. See, they don't believe you're telling the truth because more often than not, these identitarians, these wokedivists, they don't tell the truth. They lie all the time, so they assume that you do the same. No, we're not lying. We are telling you from the bottom of our hearts, this doesn't interest us. We don't care about these characters' sexuality or their race. We care about who they are as human beings and what stories they have to tell as human beings. If that's a part of that, whatever. But you've made it their entire identity. Alan Scott didn't used to be gay until DC turned him into that, and now he is being used as a tool for that specific identity group. He's being used to elevate that specific identity group above everything else that he could ever do. Nothing else that he does matters. It's the fact that he is openly gay in 1939. That's all they care about. And the readers have said, enough. We don't care as much as you do. When are you going to learn that we don't care as much as you do? We just want a good superhero story that is relatable. This isn't relatable to 99% of people. Only 1 or 2% of people can relate to this. Everybody else, they're just sitting there going, oh, this is awkward. Somebody who is straight reading this is awkward, and it's way too intimate. Even, I would say the same thing with a lot of these panels, even if it was a book about straight people. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we want superhero action. We don't want personal life. We don't want sexual escapades. We don't want overemphasis on any individual aspect of a character's life. We just want to focus on their heroism and who they are as a hero and their struggles as a hero. The blackmail thing could be fun if it wasn't a subtext for identity politics. They could do it right, but they had to make it a subtext about homosexuality in 1939 and how Hoover was controversial, and they're making it about things that only matter to them, not to everybody else. Like I said, there are plenty of people who support all these identitarian groups, but they still don't want to read it. In fact, I left a comment down below earlier, if I can find it. And I wrote this. I said, this is just sad. Not only does he blatantly lie about Comicsgate or Indie Comics goals, he's desperately pleading to the people who haven't the interest or, in our economy, the extra cash to spare for a book they won't like. Hey, Tim, even people who would agree with you still want a good story worth their money, not just pandering. And I meant that, absolutely. And what I'm trying to say with that statement is people want an entertaining story. Doesn't matter their background, doesn't matter their political allegiance. They want a good story that they can read again and again and again. If this 6-issue miniseries isn't good, it won't matter if it's got all the identitarian nonsense that you can possibly push on it. Like I said, even people who like this are going, well, is it going to be a good story? Is it going to be fun? Is Alan Scott going to be fun? Is it going to be relatable? And people are still liking this comment, by the way. Thank you very much to everybody who's liking it. It's ridiculous. They keep doing this. This is what is killing Marvel and DC, because they're not focusing on anything else other than woke identitarianism in all of their stories, or the majority of their stories at least. A couple of them I think aren't as bad, but a good majority of them are, and it's caused the longtime comics fans to go away. They're trying to court a new market that is not interested in reading comic books. And comic book fans keep telling them that. The numbers prove that. The lack of people in comic book stores prove that. They don't have the time or the money to read comic books. This is a bad economy, and comic prices are going up like everything else. They don't have the time. They don't have the money. They're not as dedicated to it. They're just going to wait for whatever movie or TV show comes out. They don't care about comic books. They might buy an initial issue to support, and that might happen with this book, but beyond that, they don't care. Comic books are for comic book fans, and when you piss off or alienate or reject comic book fans because you don't like their politics or you don't like their ideas, then they don't sell. And you've got comic store owners who buy up a bunch of comics that are just basically as good as birdcage liner. That's all they have. That's all they have, and you're destroying comic book stores. You're not focusing on making something for everybody. You want to make something for your individual group. That's why I find it so ironic where he says, let me find the quote again. These stories are for everyone, is to buy. The only way to prove to the big publisher that there's a huge market for authentic stories about LGBTQRXTUV WXYZ characters, and these stories are for everyone, is to buy the heck out of books like this. But they don't, Tim, and they won't. What makes you think all of a sudden they're going to? Because it's Alan Scott? You tried with Tim Drake. You tried with Batwoman. You tried with multiple other characters throughout DC. It is not going to sell. I don't know what to tell this guy. He is delusional and he is desperate. Because if this book doesn't sell, I guarantee you at some point in the near future, his job at DC is done. DC itself might be done very soon, which is why I'm going to move on to the next story, which is Warner Brothers Discovery foments interesting. This came out during Comic-Con that there are going to be new Thundercats books and established Warner Brothers property books, but they're not being made by DC. Dynamite Comics and Warner Brothers Discovery have partnered to release a range of new comics based on WB intellectual properties, including Thundercats, The Flintstones, The Powerpuff Girls, Space Ghost, Johnny Quest, The Wizard of Oz, We Bare Bears, and more. Bleeding Fool reported on X, everybody who has predicted a grim fate for the gutted DC has taken notice. We got Neon from Clownfish TV. Shout out to him. That should have been DC. It used to be DC. That's not a good sign. It means WB is very open to shopping around its IPs to different comic publishers, even though they own a major comics publisher. That shows very little faith in the brand. Shows very little faith in the brand. Disney made a similar deal with Dynamite and IDW before them. Disney tested the waters with IDW and it didn't work out. The company began flailing in the wind since then and lost market share. Another X-user raised important questions as to who Dynamite's books are aimed at, Gen X or younger, and how they plan on retaining that audience. Making his point with a Chris Farley meme, Neon responded, "No idea." There's some excitement to be had, and no one is more excited than Dynamite CEO Nick Barucci, or Barucci. I think it's Barucci, or Barucci. Barrucci. Quote, Warner Brothers has been at the heart of entertainment in America and across the world for an incredible 100 years, and home to so many beloved stories and franchises, he said. We're incredibly excited to bring many of them back to comics, or for the first time, as we work with WBD and wonderful creators to bring all new stories to the fans. Projected to start small publishing in early 2024, with the first title, Thundercats by Declan Shalvey, launching in February, fans can look forward to a diverse range of stories featuring top-tier writers and gorgeous art. Some of these beloved characters have never had their own comic or graphic novel before, wrote Bleeding Fool in their full coverage. We got this one panel from Thundercats, which actually doesn't look too bad, to be honest. Got Skeletor. Is it? No, that's not Skeletor. That's because Skeletor's He-Man. I forget who this is. I'm not at all really familiar with Thundercats. I really don't know, but the interesting thing about this is DC's in trouble. DC and Marvel have been in trouble for a very long time, and now we have undeniable proof that even Warner Brothers and Disney know that these arms are in trouble, because they refuse to recognize there's a lot of things they're doing wrong. They refuse to actually hire good talent, for one. All their good talent is leaving. They just announced that Jeff Johns is leaving to form Ghost Machine with a whole bunch of other creators, which will be published initially by Image Comics, but eventually I think it's going to become its own thing if it gets big enough. That's a major blow. Jeff Johns was a major senior at DC, so him leaving is not good for anybody. I mean, he's getting off the sinking ship, as many people have pointed out. Jeff Johns is getting off. And who knows, if Jim Lee is next, where do they go? What are they going to hire back some of the older executives? They're not. The whole thing is going to tank. They'd have to bring in somebody who's A, a comic fan, and B, is very business savvy to absolutely clean house. I'm talking about both Marvel and DC, because they keep making stories like the Alan Scott Green Lantern. That's all they want to make, and that's not what people want to buy. The numbers have proven that. Doesn't matter what you think about the political spectrum, people aren't buying the books. And they keep trying to force people to buy the books, and it's not working. And eventually investors are going to go, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. You guys aren't doing anything. I'm done. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already, but it's going to get there. And it might be activist investors, which might be part of the problem. I think that's a majority part of the problem. They keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and the customers don't want those types of stories. They want the old-fashioned type of stories. That is why customers are going to independent comics movements like Comicsgate or the Rippaverse or whatever. They're going to All Caps Comics. They're going to the Rippaverse. They're going to Alterna Comics. They're going to Archaven. They're going to whoever is making the types of comic books they want to read. And people are making all types of independent comic books. They're not just making superheroes, they're telling all sorts of stories. It's just a format, but it is still a format that people enjoy, myself included. And so I'm going where there are good stories. There are not good stories in DC and Marvel. If there ever are an occasion, I might check them out, but there haven't been for a long time, and that is the big problem. It has nothing to do with race, with gender, or sexuality. Those are what these companies, writers, and artists are pushing. That is not what the audience in majority cares about. Like I said before, you can agree with all of the things that DC and Marvel are pushing, but if they don't tell good stories, it doesn't matter. It's not interesting. It's not worth the money. And that's what these creators cannot accept. They cannot accept that if your story's not good, if your art's not good, your book won't sell. Plain and simple, your book won't sell. People want a good comic book. If they don't get a good comic book, it doesn't matter what the messaging is. But these people take it so personally because it's their own personal vision. And when that vision doesn't come to fruition and when it fails, they blame everybody but themselves. Everybody. They're such rabid identitarians, they can't let it go. If I start a Christian comic book, which I've often thought about doing, but if I start a Christian comic book and it fails, I'm not going to blame atheists. I'm not going to blame any other religion. I'm not going to blame anybody but myself for releasing a product that people didn't want. I might have enjoyed it. I might have wanted it. It doesn't matter what I want or what I enjoy. What matters is what the readers want and what the readers will enjoy. If the readers like my concept, they'll support it. They'll kickstart it. If they don't, the book won't sell. Plain and simple. And that's the mentality that I truly, I honestly can't understand it. I really can't. DC and Marvel would be so much better if they didn't hire people who couldn't get over themselves or who were obsessed with themselves. They keep going back to the default of everybody deserves to see themselves in these characters and in these stories. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of entertainment. You don't see yourself in characters to relate to characters. You relate to characters because the characters themselves are relatable. Regardless, I can relate to, even though I am a male, I can relate to a female character if she's going through things that are generally relatable. Even if I haven't been through them, I can still relate to her struggle. I might not be able to fully understand it, but it is compelling. It keeps my attention. And the way they handle that determines whether or not I become endeared to that character or not. The way that character, who that character is as a whole package is what I care about, not just one or two aspects. You can have a character that's a girl and she's a total jerk and I won't care. But then these people would call me a sexist for that. Because I don't like her because, you don't like her because she's a woman. No, it's not about that. It never was about that. Is she a good character or is she a bad character? I think Princess Peach is a great character. There's not a whole lot to her, but she's a great character. She's a fun character to play when she's playable in the games. And she's fun to rescue when she gets kidnapped by Bowser, which is a trope. It's not a sexist trope, it's a classical trope. She's kidnapped by a monster who she's largely powerless against, and she needs help. The same would be true of a man. It's ridiculous. Everything is so upside down. These people just keep pushing identity politics and bankrupting these companies as they continue to do so. It is truly, truly insane. Truly insane. All right, here's something interesting. All right, let me get rid of the pop-up. Alleged Transformers 1 leak claims film will reveal how Transformers obtain the ability to transform. An alleged leak from the upcoming Transformers 1 animated film from the China Licensing Expo claims to reveal that the film will reveal how Transformers obtain the ability to transform. Transformers 1 was originally made back in 2015, with Deadline's Mike Fleming Jr. reporting that Paramount Pictures and Michael Bay created a Transformers writing room featuring Andrew Barrer and Gabrielle Ferrari to cook up new Transformers ideas. At the time of the reporting, one of the ideas was Transformers 1, which Fleming Jr. described as more or less an origin story that takes place on Cybertron, the planet where the good guy and the bad guy robots hail from. We actually got a really good Transformers origin in the way of Fall for Cybertron and War for Cybertron, the two video games. I'm pretty sure I still own both on PlayStation. They're really good games. They're made by High Moon Studios, which I don't think is a thing anymore. It used to be an Activision studio. Producer Lorenzo D. Oh my gosh, I can't even say that. Bonaventura. Lorenzo D. Bonaventura would provide further details about the film in an interview with Collider back in April while promoting Transformers Rise of the Beasts. He relayed, "This is something we were trying to do. We debated a lot about it in live action. It was just financially impossible to do," which is the origin story of young Megatron and young Optimus. If you know the origin, they started as friends, and over time things devolved for them, and they ended up on two sides. Yeah, that's absolutely true based on most of the Transformers origins I've seen. So we're telling the young Optimus and the young Megatron story. We really are telling the origin story of all Transformers, both what they were at the beginning of it, how they grow up, to how they grow apart. There's a IDW image for... That's actually pretty cool. Megatron Origin. 2011. Huh. I wonder if it's any good. I know that under Image they started more Transformers comics. I'm just not entirely sure how they are. I don't know if they're any good or not. D. Bonaventura went on to share that he hopes the film spawns a trilogy. We're hoping that there is enough emotional construct to that would lead to a trilogy of it, because personally I think there's a natural trilogy. I'm not always looking to do multiple movies, but there's a natural trilogy around their relationship. So you're going to see Cybertron the way you've never seen it, that no one's ever seen it before, he relayed, because we are doing an animation. We are allowed to really go all out. If you try to make this live action, it would probably be $1 billion movie or something. Oh, so they want to make this... I'm guessing they mean CG animation, computer-generated, but I wouldn't mind a 2D... Like, if you adapted Fall for Cybertron, or Fall of Cybertron, or War for Cybertron, if you adapted those, I think they'd be pretty great, honestly. I really think so. The producer then shared even more details. You're going to see a lot of the origins of the society and what broke it apart. The analogy for me is a bit like Krypton, where you saw the planet falling apart and all that. We're not there for a short time. We're there the entire time of the movie. We're on Cybertron, but we are in the challenge that if you know the lore, they begin to question the hierarchy of how their society has gotten stratified, and how the common man doesn't have the voice entirely. That's what they want to have. So it seems very well thought out. I don't... There's nothing that screams alarm bells for me on this so far. It seems like they're really thinking about the lore, how to construct this. That's a positive. But again, they've done this before, and then somebody pipes up and adds in some form of wokeness, and then it usually tanks. But so far, I'm seeing a care about lore. I'm seeing a care about origins, about representing it right. That's the only real representation that matters in the grand scheme of entertainment. You know, there you go. This looks like it's going to be good. He then declared, "We're following very true to the origin story of it, and so it's really fun too, because I've gotten to see some of it. It's not fully executed by any stretch of the imagination, but hearing Optimus and Megatron not as who we know them as, which we see their maturation in this experience. So in a sense, you're hearing a different character because you're hearing them before they have matured." Megatron sends an emergency message to the Autobots in Transformers Fall of Cybertron. Yep, that was a good game. I wish the internet was still working for those games, because the multiplayer is fantastic on both War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. Oh man, those are some of the best Transformers games ever made. He then went on to reiterate, the main theme about the movie is Megatron and Optimus questioning their society. It's not a coming-of-age story. I don't think you'll believe that in a way, but I would say they're young men who are finding their path. Like I said, it's more than a tease. That's what the story is, and that's the experience you're going to go through, and how they question society, just like all of us could question our society. We're maybe not as strong as Megatron and Optimus, so maybe we wouldn't make the same choices, but I think it's really going to be an eye-opener for the fans. For the non-fans, you're going to get to meet the characters in their early formation, he asserted. Let's see. Now, a new leak from an alleged attendee to the China Licensing Expo shared to the Chinese social media site Baidu that the film will show how the Transformers obtain their ability to transform. And then he goes on to say there's a translated post. All right, cool. What do we make of the alleged leak? So that's I like that. I like that. Wait a second. Pixar genius John Lasseter fired by Apple, Disney v. Daily Wire, Snow White. John Lasseter got fired again? What is wrong with these companies? I'm not going to say what's wrong with Lasseter, because I don't honestly know, but Lasseter is a genius. Doesn't excuse anything bad that he may or may not have done, but He is absolutely a genius. These companies are insane for getting rid of him, unless he's done something monumentally awful. The reason they got rid of him at Pixar was because he gave a lot of unwarranted hugs, which, while you really shouldn't do that, that's just a case of telling him to knock it off or he's gone. They didn't really have to just can him at that point. Unbelievable. The Exorcist Believer review, a biblically illiterate disaster. Yeah, I heard horrible things about Exorcist Believer. I mean, I just heard it got such poor reviews and nobody liked it. Oh, boy. Oh, no. Oh, dear gosh. The Walt Disney Company announces new chief diversity officer following Latondra. And I don't know what the source of it is. It seems like if I move around pages too much, that tends to be what's happening. But the Walt Disney Company announces new chief diversity officer following Latondra Newton's exit. The Walt Disney Company announced a new chief diversity officer in Tanisha Agramonte following Latondra Newton's exit. Notice how their diversity officers aren't really diverse. It's just by default black woman. I mean, I'm just saying. From the company at the end of June. It was revealed by Variety that Newton left the Walt Disney Company after they obtained an internal company memo from the company's HR chief, Sonia Coleman. Coleman wrote in the memo, "I'm writing to share the news that Latondra Newton has decided to leave the Walt Disney Company to pursue other endeavors." Since joining the company in 2017, Latondra has led the company's strategic diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, including partnering with stakeholders across an enterprise to amplify stories of the world by people around the world. She has been dedicated to ensuring every person sees themselves in... They're just describing everything that's wrong with Disney and everything that is driving away the core Disney audience. This woman may single-handedly be responsible for that, the woman who's leaving. Yeah, I'll bet the heat's getting turned up. Are you kidding me? Let me read this again. Since joining the company in 2017, Latondra has led the company's strategic diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, including partnering with stakeholders across the enterprise to amplify stories of the world by people around the world. She has been dedicated to ensuring every person sees themselves and their life experiences represented in a meaningful and authentic way. And I will say it again. I said it earlier in the stream. It is not, under any circumstances, it is not about seeing yourself in things. If you see yourself in things, get help because you are a narcissist. Plain and simple. As a kid, I never saw myself as Batman, as Superman. Oh, sure, I wanted to be like them, but I wasn't them. I knew I wasn't them. I thought that they were cool, just like I thought my dad was cool, and he still is cool. My dad's awesome. But I'm not them. I'm not my dad. I'm not Batman. I'm not Superman. These are figures that we aspire to be like. We don't make them into ourselves because who knows what's wrong with us? This is just so narcissistic. And yet that was the major push for the Walt Disney Company. Oh gosh, they got a screen from the stupid Proud Family louder and prouder. Dear gosh. In a press release, the Walt Disney Company announced that they named Tanisha Agramonte as their new senior vice president and chief diversity officer of the Walt Disney Company. That's their mistake. Despite everything, all of the money that they've been losing, despite all of the problems that the Walt Disney Company has been having, they are still out there hiring a chief diversity officer and keeping their diversity offices. And they get so much power and so much say over so many of the projects. They're going directly to stakeholders to push this stuff, which we knew. We've known they've held this power for years, which is why Disney won't reverse course. Anybody who thinks, oh, Disney's going to reverse course, they're going to get good again. No, as long as they have these diversity initiatives and these diversity offices, game over. It's done. That's why I have sworn off the Walt Disney Company potentially for the rest of my life. As long as they keep these offices. The day they close these offices is the day we can have hope that Hollywood will produce something good. But they won't close these offices because that is the initiative that they are fully 110% behind, even though they are the ones losing them quite literally billions of dollars. Way to freaking go, Disney. Way to go. And I should clarify, I'm not angry because they're choosing to engage in diversity. I'm angry because it's clear that they're losing money. And the common business sense thing is, Why don't we knock this off? We weren't doing this before, and before we used to make money. Now we're surrendering everything on the altar of diversity, and we're not making any money. We're losing money. We're having to lay off employees constantly. Then we replace them with people who were just as bad, if not worse. And the cycle goes on and on and on and on and on. It's just going to keep going in this merry-go-round as long as these diversity officers have any say in anything. It's just going to keep going because they're not concerned about good storytelling. That doesn't matter anything to them. They leave that to the writers and producers who don't know how to do that. It's all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then they find directors and writers who are all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it just keeps snowballing and snowballing and snowballing until eventually we get turds like the new Snow White that's coming out, or like the Little Mermaid, or the soon-to-be turd The Marvels, or Wonka over at Warner Brothers. It's just exhausting because the public is telling them no more, but they're so into their religion that they won't let it go. These companies and some governments have been taken over by this religion of woke. It is a religious and spiritual thing. That's why they aren't letting go of it. They're devoted to it because they think it is the progress forward for humanity. It is human progress to force elevation of minorities. Or I should say certain minorities, because it's not really every minority. Not everybody truly gets represented, because you can't truly represent everybody. That is a impossibility. You're always going to get something wrong when trying to accurately represent something. They don't even represent black people good enough the majority percent of the time. You'll always get black people clapping back. Why don't they act like this? Why don't they say this? Why don't they live here? Why don't they do this? It's just they need people who look black on the screen, and then they have them act however they feel they should act. We are tokens. We are tokens in Hollywood. Years after finally getting over being tokens, we are being re-tokenized by Hollywood. Same with gay people, same with women. They're being used for backpats and awards. That's all this is. They don't actually care about these people. They're just trying to use them to further their own goals. And it's not working because they're not gaining money. This is embarrassing. This is truly sad. All they need to do is make something generic, or not generic. All they need to do is make something that is relatable on a basic level. They need to make something that people can relate to emotionally, relationally, and is just good storytelling. Good storytelling. People can relate with tragedy. They can relate with depression. They can relate with comedy. They can relate with romance. It doesn't have to be specifically how specific people do things or how they look or who they are. It just has to be, generally speaking, human living experiences. That's what people are going to see. They're going to see human experiences. If you're putting emphasis on one group of people over a majority group of people, that's not balancing the scales. That's tipping the scales in somebody else's favor as revenge for people who you think were tipping the scales in their favor, even though they weren't. That's exactly what all of this boils down to. This is revenge for wokedivists who think that white people have had it too good for too long. That's what they believe. They're horrible racists. They really are. But they will call everybody else racist. And it makes me very sad. Because I grew up hearing things like Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech where he talked about he hopes that he has a dream that one day people will not be judged by the content, by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Boy, it's been a long time since I've had to ever really say that, because it's just become so commonplace. And look, I don't agree with MLK, every MLK doctrine that has come out. I don't agree with a lot of the other things that he has said. Most people will universally agree on the I Have a Dream speech. Whether or not he fully believed in that or not remains to be seen. But he was right, or whoever wrote his speech was right. It is about the content of people's character, not about the color of their skin, not about what's between their legs, not about who they sleep with. It is all about who you are as a total human being. There is more to a human being than their skin color, what's between their legs, who they sleep with, or even who they choose to believe in religiously. People are a grand total of things. They're not just one or two or three things. They're a grand total of things. And that's how we interact with each other, as a grand total. That's why people disagree, because there are aspects of people's lives that are agreeable, and then there are aspects of people's lives that are disagreeable. It's not very hard, and it's not racist, it's not sexist, it's not homophobic, it's human. But what's happened over the past several years, and I'll go back to the Bounty in the Comics main page here. What has happened over the past several years is you have had an overemphasis on identity. Identity has become a religion for so many people, whereas beforehand, people were still identitarian, but they were more so in things like sporting events, or maybe where they came from, like their state or their country. Those sorts of things were to be expected. You know, politically, people didn't talk about politics till Thanksgiving. And a lot of people dreaded Thanksgiving because things like politics would come up. But throughout the rest of the year, people just stayed silent. They believed what they wanted to believe, and that was it. Now that the internet is big and social media is big, everybody is debating things that irk them all the time. And it's just become a bloodbath. It has become an absolute mess. People just do not have any sort of neutrality or reasonability. It's either they go one way or the other, and everybody who's trying to be in the middle, who's trying to be neutral, gets wiped out. That's been the culture war since the 2010s, possibly a little earlier, and it's headache-inducing, it's tiring, I'm tired of it. I talk about it because it's really all there is to talk about, aside from the war going on in the Middle East, and I don't have much to say about that. It's war, it's terrible. I wish it wasn't happening, but it is. But as far as the culture war is concerned, which is something that is more close to home, not that the other war doesn't matter, I'm definitely praying for the people who are involved, and I'm praying that there is a swift resolution to it, although it probably won't be swift, knowing everything that's going on. The culture war is something that is affecting multiple generations and the future, because it is people who are fighting for certain types of future. There are people who are fighting for a quote-unquote progressive future, and then there are people who are fighting for a more traditional future where there is freedom and people can choose whether they believe one thing or another. Not that these things are the standard and you should believe these things, otherwise you are a horrible bigot. It's just, I'm tired. It's tiring. But I'm not going to give up my beliefs for people who are going to accuse me of things that I am not guilty of. This whole article about Tim Sheridan and all of the accusations he was leveling against comics gators just shows his ignorance. He is completely ignorant to Comicsgate. He doesn't know what they're about. He just sees something that's doing the opposite of what he is doing, and then he assumes that is motivated by hatred. When people like EVS have come out and said this isn't about being anti-whatever, this is about making comics the way they used to be made and not elevating one group of people over another. You know, true equality, where it's just about the human experience, or about things that aren't even human, but still relating to it somehow. That's what independent comics are about. I don't even want to say Comicsgate, because that was just one movement. It has sprawled into the independent comic book scene as a whole. When you've got guys, is Jeff Johns Comicsgate now because he left DC and is doing his own thing? I'll guarantee you that they'll accuse him of doing so, but he's not. He might be on their side. In fact, I would guarantee you he's on their side with most issues with the woke-tivists, but he understands that people want to read good stories. He's a comic book writer. He wants to write good stories. And if he can't do that at Marvel or DC, he'll start his own company, which was the whole idea to begin with. Marvel and DC are terribly limiting in the way that they do things. And so this stuff is all exhausting, guys. It really is. Like, I don't want to come across as negative about this, but I am tired. I'm tired of wokeness in comic books. I'm tired of wokeness in movies. I'm tired of it in video games. I'm tired of it in television shows. And it's just endless and endless. And people are just saying, no, I'm done with this. If this is what you are dedicating to giving us for the foreseeable future, we're gone. But they can't divest themselves of their diversity, equity, and inclusion departments. They can't do that because the shareholders expect that of them now. The shareholders are also responsible. I think for a long time people have been saying, well, the shareholders need to step up. But the shareholders are the ones who are also pushing this. Why? I don't know. but they are. And people have had enough. So now they're going to try to deceive customers. And it's going to work on some, but I don't think it's going to work on the majority. Their ways haven't changed. They're not devoted to making truly neutral media anymore. They want to make media to please certain groups of people and to lower others and to shame others and to bully others. They are everything they accuse their opponents of being. They always have been. And then when their opponents try to defend themselves, they end up being the ones attacked. It's very transparent. If you look at the media that their opponents are producing, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff. You know, you go over to Arcaven Comics. It's largely good stuff. It's really good stuff. They've got all of these lists of comics, and some of them are anti-SJW and things like that in direct response, but a lot of these are just stories that people want to tell. Some of these are books, some of these are comics, a lot of these are just... Yeah, these are books, they're audiobooks. Let's actually look through some of these. I wouldn't mind spending the rest of the stream just looking at independent comics. That's got sort of an Avengers font going on there. Yeah, let's see what you got going on for comics. Alt Hero? Huh. That's different. Number 1, number... And they're pretty cheap, $2.99. Some of these are digital. I'm going to have to buy some of these. There's a bundle. There's a monthly package. $5 a month. Oh, I might consider that if these are good. Flying Sparks. Well, that's a cool design. She's kind of Nightwing-esque. What's this about? What is this about? Chloe Anderson is a physics student by day, a hard-working, smart girl who's close with her mad scientist professor, working with him as a teacher's assistant. She has access to several of his inventions, and in order to help test them, she moonlights as the superhero Meta-Girl. John Benvenuti? I'm getting so horrible with names the older I get. I never used to be this bad, I swear. Comes from a well-established Italian crime family and recently found he has the ability to shoot lightning from his hands. His descent into deeper crime only creates the need to cover up more as he runs his operation out of a coffee shop front business. When the two of them meet, sparks fly on multiple levels, but will they be able to maintain their relationship while keeping secret lives from each other? Oh, so this is a hero-villain co-story. So you see the origin of the hero, you see the origin of the villain. Interesting. I like her design. Very Nightwing-esque. The Nightwing-style mask and colors. And she's got two sort of like Nightwing-style sticks, but they shoot. Very Nightwing-inspired, but also a lot of electricity, which is one of my favorite powers. I really like this. I'm going to have to read it and see if it's any good. Maybe pick it up. It's $10. It looks like it's a whole package deal. But, man, that looks pretty good. Flying Sparks Meta Man Special? For the last 50 years, Meta Man has been an enigma, a reclusive hero who does his duty but shies away from the public eye. What happened? Who is he? Unlocked from the archives for the first time, you can dive into one of Meta Man's early adventures and get a glimpse into his heroic world as he works to stave off a plot from his nemesis, Dr. Malicious, and his communist commandos. Can Meta Man prevail, or will the USSR interfere with American presidential election and and spread reach across the Iron Curtain across the globe? Read this action-packed superhero comic and find out. Cool. So this is based more on a historical event, loosely. But it's not really twisting anything or any identities or any of that. It's just using a historical event as a storyboard. That's the way. If you're going to insist on any sort of politics or real-world things in comics, do that. For some reason, Marvel and DC don't know how to do that, and I don't quite understand it. It's very strange. It is Very strange indeed. But this looks cool. This looks very cool. I'm liking this stuff. I really am. And from what I've heard, Archaven's just done well. They've sold out on this. My Sister Suprema. I think this is Chuck Dixon. In fact, this is Chuck Dixon. Anthony Gonzalez Clark and Chuck Dixon. Randy is a bright young boy who devours comics and dreams of becoming a superhero. One day, he discovers a secret formula on the internet that claims to provide an individual with superpowers. After assembling all the ingredients and technology required, he experiments with the process, but the whole thing goes terribly wrong. Somehow, by accident, his big sister Cecilia ends up with the very superpowers he'd been seeking for himself, and she has no idea what to do with them. It falls to Randy to help her figure out what her powers are, select a costume, choose a superhero name, and teach her what it means to be a superhero. But while Randy and his sister are trying to figure things out and hide her new powers from their parents, the villain, whose formula Randy inadvertently discovered, is hunting for thieves who stole his secret. Written by the legendary Chuck Dixon. Hey, there we go. And illustrated by Anthony Gonzalez Clark, My Sister Suprema is a unique and charming superhero origin story. And it kind of sounds a bit Hispanic, so it's not really identitarian. It's just a case of she happens to be Hispanic. See, there is a difference, guys. They're not emphasizing gender or race. They're just telling a story. This is a story that happens to feature a female superhero, but they're not overemphasizing it. That is good, and she might be a good character. I don't know. I haven't read it. But that's the way you do it. Archaven is doing it correctly, whereas DC and Marvel are not. Oh, man. Quantum Morris, A Man Disputed. Chief Warrant Officer Graven Tower is a ruggedly handsome military policeman who hates aliens. Fortunately, as a member of his Grace Military Crimes Investigation Division, Xenocriminology and Alien Relations, he gets to arrest a lot of them. Sometimes he even gets to shoot them. But while he doesn't like aliens, Chief Tower does very much like Detective Darren Hildreth of the Transparadis Police Department, who is unmistakably human. So when Tower has the chance to investigate the mysterious murder of an alien on the streets of Transparadis with her, he's not about to miss the opportunity, especially when their mutual investigation just might give him the excuse to shoot an alien or three. Well, this would never get made at DC or Marvel, I'm telling you that much. That is certainly true. And this cover looks great. If you're listening on audio, this is a neat cover. I really like the art style. There's a very old school style. Oh, I like that. Definitely going to have to read this. I'm going to have to make a small pull list for this. Jeez. And these are digital too, and I just got a new Fire tablet, so I'll have to check these out. This is exciting stuff. Right Ho, Jeeves. Issue 1. These are sold out. Sold out. Oh, I guess these aren't digital. I guess these are all physical. So this isn't a hero book by the looks of it, but I do like the newspaper comic style going on here. That's really cool. A Binge at Brinkley is the first issue in the Right Ho Jeeves series. Right Ho Jeeves tells of the travails of the inimitable, 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 whatever. Bertie Wooster, summoned from the comforts of 3A Berkeley Mansions, London, to Brinkley Manor by his imperious aunt Dahlia. Love is in the air, and Woodhausen shenanigans are afoot, as Wooster is not the sole guest at the manor, which is also playing host to the fairy-gazing Madeline Bassett, as well as the famous newt fancier Augustus Finknodel. Okay, this is getting tongue-twisty. But as the inimitable, there it is again, inimitable, Jeeves is there to set things right and save the day. Adapted from the classic Woodhouse novel by comics legend Chuck Dixon and drawn by Savage Sword of Conan illustrator Gary... Why does everybody except Chuck Dixon have weird names? Why? I can't pronounce these things. What? Come on. A Binge at Brinkley at Brinkley is issue 1 of 6 in the Righto Jeeves series. This looks fun too. Almost everything that I've clicked on here at Archaven looks like it's a whole lot of fun. It really does. Then there's one more page. Let's see if there's any other series. Okay, that's just more Righto Jeeves. So, I mean, they're putting out work. They're doing good work. Alt Hero issue 1. I'm curious about this. When Captain Europa offers Janelle Generet a recruitment deal she can't refuse, the French model doesn't hesitate to sign up with the Global Justice Initiative. After all, they're providing her with a killer apartment in Brussels, a new outfit, and even a flashy new name, in addition to paying her an awful lot of money. And it's even tax-free. But is there a catch? And how is a group of superhumans based in Europe going to go about establishing global justice anyway? Alt Hero is the first and exciting new lineup of superhero comics from Archaven Comics. Oh, so this is their first outing. Nice. Nice. Chuck Dixon's Avalon. Oh, his name is prominently featured on this one. From the mean streets of Mosley. I can't say. Why can't I talk tonight? What is wrong with me? To the luxurious beach houses of Diamond Beach. Okay, that's normal. Crime affects everybody in Avalon, and the presence of superhumans known around the city as specials. That's similar to the supers from Incredibles, but I like that. Hasn't necessarily made life for the average citizen any better, since the local vigilantes are as apt to demand payment for their protection as they are to provide their services for free. The crime-fighting duo of King Ace and Phaser are true heroes, not vigilantes, as Phaser explains the difference to a reporter interviewing him for the city paper. A hero doesn't expect thanks or payment. He helps people because it's the right thing to do. That's very Chuck Dixon-esque, and I love it. And a hero doesn't kill anyone, ever. Also, well, I mean, Chuck's done Punisher. I mean, didn't he invent Punisher? Punisher has killed, but hey. All he and the big guy are trying to do is make everyday life better for everyone walking through their streets living in the city. Is that a reference to God? Is Chuck Dixon a believer? Dude, if I find that out, I am... Oh, man. That is just beautiful. This looks awesome. This lady looks very Catwoman-esque. Sort of like a cyberpunk Catwoman, and this guy's got a cool playing card motif. I like this. I like this. I like this a lot. Oh, there are digital formats. I'm going to have to buy some of these. Kind of low on funds at the moment, but hey, I would like to buy these. I really would, and I would review them on Cool Comics for sure. Because these all look like really cool comics. I'm really excited for what they're doing at Archaven. I think that's great. They also got Dark Legion comics. I don't know what that's all about. Castalia Direct Bookstore. Castalia, is this the same as Castalia House? Is this? Because if it is, I'm curious to see if, oh, maybe it's not. Books. I wonder if you can get... Okay, here's some of the Conan books from Chuck Dixon. Then you can get Avalon. That's in book form. Oh, there they are. Death Mask from Razor Fist. And do we have The Long Moonlight? Is The Long Moonlight in here? Or is it gone? It might just be gone. You might hear my dog a little bit. Let's see. The Long Moonlight. There it is. The Long Moonlight. That's the audiobook form. There's the signed copy, the paperback. $15. I was wondering where I'd be able to get that. Yeah, Dark Legion books. Wow. Congrats to Razor Fist, honestly, because this stuff is great. This was his first pulp. And then Death Mask is the second book. And I assume, and I don't know for a fact, you'll have to check with him, but I will assume that once it's done with its initial campaign and things like that, that Ghost of the Badlands will be here. And this is probably where I'll get it. I am 110% getting Ghost of the Badlands. I love everything I've seen out of Ghost of the Badlands. Him and George Alexopoulos. Oh, so exciting, dude. So exciting. In fact, I think he had some. I can't because I'm not logged into Twitter on the only Twitter account I have. I typically don't have a Twitter account, but I have one left over for my racing account that I use. But I checked Razorfist's page to see if he's got any previews of Ghosts of the Badlands, and every once in a while he'll drop one. They are just awesome, really fantastic. I can't wait for Ghosts of the Badlands. That'll probably be the first book of his I'll buy. Then if I really like that, I'll probably go and get Long Moonlight and maybe Death Mask. If I can get any of these available digitally too, which I want to do because I've got so much stuff. I've got so much junk. And I've got a box for comics that I haven't filled yet, but it's starting to get tight. I need to get one or two more if I'm going to start getting these physical editions, and I don't want to stack more junk on top of what I've already got. I really do want physical copies of a lot of these books if I can get them, but it's a space issue. It really is. So, yeah, so this is under Castalia House. Or Castalia House is under them. Boy. So, let's look over at Alterna Comics. See what they got going on. Peter Simeti. Oh, I love their covers. Almost all their covers feel like they're old-fashioned. Oh, there's so much stuff here. Look at all this. King Cryptid, Blood Realm, Horik Hoover. Look at that. It came out on a Wednesday. Unit 44. Wolfie and Batsy. I wonder if they can get away with using Batsy. That seems like... I don't think Joker has that trademark to DC or anything like that. I don't think they can trademark the saying Batsy. But King Cryptid looks cool. Yeah, that's the thing is I've got a short box. I've got 2 short boxes. I need to get a third or a fourth at some point, but there's only so much money, ladies and gentlemen. There's only so much money. Oh, this guy looks cool for T-Bird and Throttle. Where's that? I see King Cryptid. I see... Alright. Comics. I like his logo. It kind of feels very Marvel-inspired, but I like it. Very Marvel-inspired colors. In fact, I'm surprised they haven't tried to sue him over it. How can they? He just used the same color scheme. They don't own that, as far as I'm aware. What would have been cool is if he did a comic script the same as Marvel did on the bottom of Alterna. I think that would still look really, really good. In case Peter Simeti or anybody with Alterna is watching this, which I doubt. I think that would be great. I think that'd be really cool. Alright, so let's look at what some of they have. They have this Blood Realm series. That looks very macabre. Not exactly my sort of thing, but looks cool. They have Can't Kill Cade. Sounds very Punisher-esque. Looks very Punisher-esque. We'll click on them one at a time. It came on a Wednesday. It came out on a Wednesday. I'm actually very curious about this. And it's only $2. Is a single issue. Focusing on horror, sci-fi, and fantasy, this bi-monthly ongoing double-sized anthology features the best and brightest up-and-coming creators. Each issue features stunning cover art, interviews, ongoing stories, and a comic contest, and previews of upcoming alternate titles. And the best part, it comes out on a Wednesday, of course. Okay, so no real description here. Alright, so it's an anthology. So it's a collection of stories. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's what the... Neat. I completely misunderstood what that was to begin with. That's cool. So it's out of print. Well, that's unfortunate. Hopefully they'll start getting digital stuff in when they run out of print, because that's... Love to check this stuff out, really. So this is like their sort of magazine of sorts. That's cool. Man, I really am in love with the art that they're doing here. I think that's really cool stuff. Really cool. Mr. Crypt. 1 of 3. What's this about? Very cartoonesque. I like that. Introducing Mr. Crypt, the living skeleton, and Baron Rat. This is so old-fashioned, and I love it. I love it. I love how old-fashioned this is. Mr. Crypt is everyone's favorite living skeleton in a top hat and mustache. Together with his best friend Baron Rat, the friendly duo embark on a series of misadventures. Very cool. Alright, is there some previews of this? Yes. Oh, that is cool. Oh, so he puts on a top hat and a mustache so nobody notices him. And the dog takes his hand. That's funny. That's funny. If that gets collected in a graphic novel, I might get that. I like that a lot. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Alright. Mighty Mascots. They've had to do second printings because these are so popular. Marvel and DC, take note. They're doing things the way comics should be. The Mighty Mascots. Say hello to the weirdest group of heroes to ever grace a 4-color panel when a local supermarket becomes ground zero for an evil experiment. The Mighty Mascots race to the scene, but what they find there may bring a quick end to their newfound heroics. First appearances, the Mighty Mascots, Captain Horatio, Honeyflake, Sea Rat, Mondo Martian, that's a cool name, Boxer Bear, Brewster McPunch, I like that, Smack, Whack, Boom, and Professor Manny Coleman, Muckmouth, Tartar Creeps, the Crown Team. Cool. Just wacky fun. That's what comics should be. Wacky or action-packed or dramatic. Just fun. Oh, man, I am excited. Let's see what they got for graphic novel collections. Adventures of Mr. Crypt and Baron Rat. Sweet. $11.96. Ooh, that's on sale. That is on sale. So they don't have too many graphic novels. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Cool. Feast or Famine. Eden. Eric Henson's Eden. The Chair. Now a major motion picture. Really? Is it really? By Kevin Christensen and Peter Simeti. Richard Sullivan is an innocent man struggling to escape his fate on death row. Witnessing the brutal torture and murder of his fellow inmates, will he find a way to survive, or will the insane events of the prison finally consume him? A horror thriller set on death row. The Chair is a dark character study on the choices people make in life. Can you overcome your past, or will you be doomed to repeat it? Everything is not what it seems. Insanity is such an easy thing to lose. First edition, first printing. By Peter Simeti, Kevin Christensen, and Eric, I can't see that, Kroot. Alright, so this is black. Oh, this is a cool style. It's in black and white. They got the cool speech bowl. That's cool. I'm not a horror guy, I'll be honest with you, but that looks cool. That might be worth a read if you're interested. For sure. Oh, man. See, independent comics are doing just fine. I just gave 2 examples of publishers that are doing absolutely fantastic. Let's see. Let's go to All Caps Comics. Mr. Ethan Van Sciver. Um, he doesn't have a. That's just kind of his thing. I think he has to go to. You have to type in Cyberfrog. Da, 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 da. Cyberfrog number 1. Ooh, is this legit? Oh, this is a classic Cyberfrog. This is from 2000. Wow. That's pretty gory, so I gotta be careful about showing that. Is he gonna release a run of Cyberfrog on... doesn't really have anywhere other than the Kickstarter. Or Indiegogo, rather. Cyberfrog Blood Honey. Newest campaign. The campaign's closed. Okay. So... where is... okay, that's Dale Keown's Pit. Ethan Van Sciver. Let's see. I can click on it here. 27 campaigns. Where the heck? Okay, here's campaigns. Oh, I love the Cyberfrog. Cyberfrog 3 Red Extermination. How's that one doing? $545,584. Very close. Couple hundred away from $1 million. But yeah, Comicsgate is doing so terrible. There's no demand for these books. They're just hateful, hateful books. Give me a break, guys. They're just making fun comic books. That's all they're doing. I don't care how you feel about the creators. That's all they're doing. And he's got some awesome stuff, EVS. He has got some really awesome looking stuff, honestly. That is so cool. That is so awesome. Good for him, honestly. I wish he would open an all-caps comics site and he would bring in some other... Do what Archaven and Alterna are doing. But that's honestly up to Ethan. I just wish that he would turn that into a brand of its own so that way they could be more strengthened. Imagine all of these different brands. Imagine Ghost Machine and Alterna, and I'm not saying they all work together, but imagine all of these different brands competing with Marvel and DC. They would be overwhelmed. They would be completely overwhelmed. Speaking of which, what's another... oh yeah, the Rippaverse. Let's see. Campaigns. Unfortunately, as we know, he's about to get into a lawsuit with the International School of Ministry, which is dumb. He might have to change the name of ISOM, which I hope he's at least considering. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's considering everything. Pre-order campaign goals. Sales goal percent. 2 million total sales. I think this eclipsed the first one. This is incredible. Good for Eric. All right, where's ISOM number 1? And that reached 3 million. Okay, so he didn't eclipse the first one, but oh boy. Oh man. That's why he's being sued, because look at the money he made. My throat is starting to kill me. I don't know how people stream for multiple hours. I could lose my voice by the time this is over. Oh man, look at how cool this stuff is. I'm looking forward to Alpha Core. ISOM number 1, cover C. 96-page book written by Eric July. Cliff Richards, Gabe Etalib, Eldabe. By any chance he's watching this, I'm so sorry if I butchered your name. I have been on a name butchering spree tonight, and I can't help it. This cover's awesome. This is really cool. It's $20, so that's not bad. That's not bad at all. For a graphic novel, that's a good price point. He can still make a profit and it won't break people's banks. It's less than you spend for groceries. He's got his own short box. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. He's got that Storm-esque character. I don't know who she is. I forget. Yara? Or Yaira? I think it's Yaira. I'm not sure. Alright, let's go back to campaigns. He's just getting started. He is just getting started. News. Yara number 1. Okay, so Yara number 1 is coming out. They're not kickstarting that. Alpha Core. I'm excited about Alpha Core because Chuck Dixon's doing Alpha Core. Very excited. I hope they're looking into digital formats. Maybe once all this lawsuit stuff is over, they can look at doing a digital format. I'm excited, guys. There's good news in comic books. There really is. There's a lot of good stuff happening. There's a lot of good stuff happening. So there's no reason for people to be all crazy and think that Marvel and DC are the end-all, say-all, be-all, because they're not. They're not. There's great stuff happening. There's absolutely great stuff happening. My only criticism would be, I wish Bounty Unit Comics would review more of the alternative stuff and start pushing that a lot more than talking about the news. I know that's kind of their thing, is they're doing a little bit of everything, but I would like to see John Trent and Company focus on being more well-rounded and promoting the alternative comics and showing how good they are, as opposed to just, taking the obvious pot shots at Marvel and DC. It's fine that they're doing that, and I'm glad they're talking about like this whole Alan Scott mess. That's fine, but I would like them to at some point pivot to talking about some of these and reviewing some of these independent comic releases, because I think that would be really helpful for people looking in to break into the independent sphere and see what's good, what's bad. As I take a drink here. Oh, man. My throat is getting absolutely beat to crap. Oh, boy. Okay. Any other stories worth reading here? Anything at all? Because if not, I might just wrap up with a final segment here. I haven't really done a final segment before, but I kind of want to at this point. Daredevil born-again actor Vincent D'Onofrio. Don't ask me to pronounce people's last names. Deletes ex-account private's Instagram following show getting scrapped. That's not a good sign. Your social media shouldn't hinge on projects you do. What's going on there, dude? Wonder Woman actress Gal Gadot encourages her followers to support Israel after condemning dehumanizing war propaganda from both Israel and Hamas. So she's sort of trying to play a middleman, but she's very much pro-Israel because she is natively Israeli. That makes sense. I don't really want to talk about the war, guys. I want to completely avoid talking about that. You can go anywhere for that sort of thing. I don't want to talk about it until it's really pertinent to talk about. Just keep praying for people. Keep doing whatever you need to do to support whatever you want to do. I'm not going to tell you who or what or where to support, because I don't want anything to do with war. Frankly, it's a horrible thing. Obviously, if it becomes a world war, I will support my country. Obviously, I will stand behind my country, but I'm hoping nothing comes to that serious. Honestly, because we don't need that on top of everything that's going on. We really don't need that. Artist Kelly Jones to team up with Grendel creator Matt Wagner for new Dracula story. Dracula can be fun. Dracula can be really fun if he's done right. All right, let's go over to Bleeding Full, and then I think I'll do a wrap-up segment. And we'll see what happens from there. I think once we do the wrap-up segment, we will call it a stream, because I've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. Walt Disney signs major deal with Communist China's TikTok. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Disney has signed a significant agreement with China-owned TikTok, becoming the publishing partner for the platform's premium ad offering. Oh, no. Oh, no. According to a TechCrunch report, TikTok will reportedly give Disney a spot within the Chinese app where Disney fans can watch videos from Disney brands, making their own with Disney's music and special effects. Look, this just... They're going where the money is. I hate to admit it, but this is a smart move from Disney. They're going where the money is. I don't have any love for TikTok. I don't have any use for TikTok, but they're going where the money is. They are desperate. They are desperate for money, as they should be. They absolutely should be. So this doesn't surprise me. I'm not even going to read the rest of this article, because it's just, it's obvious. It's obvious. Disney is going where the money is for the first time in who knows how long. There's money to be made in TikTok. I hate to admit it. There just is. It is the dawn of the Iron Age, as coined by Razorfist. He deserves credit for that, by the way. He deserves all the credit for that. A previous post on the Death Cult's conquest of pop culture occasioned much comment about where indie creators, in particular new pub authors, go next. A common refrain among the commentariat invoked a burgeoning new counterculture movement, the Iron Age. As coined by Razorfist, the rise of another online campaign to counter corporate skin-suit IPs may give longtime readers Groundhog Day vibes. But before we rush to judgment, what is the Iron Age, and how do its adherents plan to counteract the death cult homogeny over pop culture? That is a good way to describe what's going on in pop culture. It feels like a death cult. Join or die. That's what they mean by death cult. I want to be very clear. This isn't code. This is literally, if you are not woke, then you don't deserve a spot at the table, you don't deserve a voice, you don't deserve to be heard, you are just evil and should be forgotten. That's how they view people outside of the woke hegemony. That's how they view it. That's why they're calling it a death cult hegemony, because there's no hope for artists outside of that in the mainstream, so they have to do their own thing. Here's author John A. Douglas with the elevator pitch. The Iron Age is the product of moving away from the undead IPs, and authenticity and genius is the gold standard we trade in. For a more thorough explanation, watch his Iron Age video now, and that's all they got. And experience the horror adventure series that did shake the pillars of the pop culture temple. Sweet. Why does the comic book industry keep hiding its sales figure? Probably because they don't want to scare investors who are uncertain about the direction that they're going, most likely, something like that. Warner Brothers no longer letting James Gunn have total creative control of DCU. Ooh, that's spicy already. He hasn't even released a movie yet, outside of, I think, Blue Beetle, maybe something under his belt, but ooh, that is certainly spicy. After taking over as co-CEOs of DC Studios, James Gunn and Peter Safran have made some significant progress towards building a new DCU. However, it appears they do not have complete autonomy to work on initiatives that feature the characters of the comic book company. This could either be really good or really bad, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to be very clear on that. This could be very good or very bad, because on the one hand, James Gunn doesn't get to go wild and rogue. On the other hand, you're going to have the corporate suits coming down with their DEI officers on these products. And on these projects, rather. And that is far from good. That is bad. Variety reports now that Warner Brothers and Max are creatively involved with the DC slate, which means that Guardians of the Galaxy director and producer will not be able to make decisions without also consulting Warner Brothers Discovery Management, despite Gunn having previously stated that DC Studios is an independent organization from Warner Brothers, despite being a part of the company. So there's conflicting messages. Already, I don't trust James Gunn with the future of the DC Cinematic Universe. He's being charged with effectively rebooting DC. I've never thought that was a good idea. Do not give control to one man. Doesn't matter what his politics are. Doesn't matter anything. Unless he has proven himself without a shadow of a doubt, do not just dump it all onto one man because he did Guardians of the Galaxy good over at Marvel. That's not smart. Per Variety, unlike the Marvel-Disney relationship in which Marvel controls the creative process in Disney Plus merely releases the content. Max is creatively involved with the DC slate. Gunn and Safran don't enjoy the same autonomy as Marvel's Kevin Feige. Regardless, some on the lot are convinced that another company, most likely Universal, will buy Warner Brothers within 2 years, making recent DC subplots and upheavals feel quaint. If another studio buys Warner Brothers, there's significant risk for monopoly. There really shouldn't be. These studios are trying to do it to survive, but it's not going to mean anything. They're just consolidating more resources, and they're going to kill more resources because this will be an absorption. They will absorb Warner Brothers, and that's stupid of Universal to do. I mean, it's not entirely stupid because they've got Harry Potter in their theme parks, and it allowed them to expand on Warner Brothers properties, but it'd be better for them to just buy off the properties independently than to just outright buy the studios. I don't think that's very smart at all, to be honest with you. The DCU has previously experienced issues with this. Suicide Squad suffered as a result of the studio's choice to allow David Ayer's script to make it funny. Yeah, that was in response to, ironically, James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. Justice League experienced the same thing, which was further demonstrated by the popularity of the Snyder Cut after its release on Max. The management at Marvel Studios, DC's main rival, is considerably different since Kevin Feige has virtually unrestricted authority to decide which tales to convey and how. And it has been incredibly successful for them. Well, up until now. It seems like either he's lost control, or he has wavered and just given into wokeness, or he's all aboard the woke train. Either way, he's killing Marvel, and I think they realize that. In the past, you could have said, yeah, it would be great for James Gunn to do this, but not now, not when wokeness has ramped up as being the centerpiece of entertainment, which it never should have been. It never should have been. Oh, man, my voice is starting to get shot. I know you can't really hear it, but whew. I don't know how people do this for hours on end. I'm only an hour and almost 30 minutes in, and I'm already winded. I guess I gotta do this more. I'm trying to do it once a week. It's a good thing I have a big thing of water. This is an actual smart water, by the way. This is just a refrigerator refill. Pardon me. I know some people don't like drinking and eating on stream, but yeah, I gotta do that. All right. Gunn and Safran's DC Universe, however, will be a reboot of the series. As such, they will undoubtedly discover as they go what works best for the organization and its characters, or do whatever it takes to sell the company off. Yeah, these rumors are starting to ramp up, which means that there's probably some grain of truth to what's happening. What I think will happen, and what I think should happen, is Warner Brothers shouldn't sell its whole studio and infrastructure to Universal. They should start selling IPs. Sell IPs that underperform. Sell DC. DC has vastly underperformed outside of, say, video games and some animated series and movies. Their comics are underperforming. Their live-action movies are underperforming. Some of their cartoons are doing okay. They need to sell off that whole DC division. They could make good money on it, and Universal could definitely make it work, in my opinion. I think that's the smartest thing to do. Will they do that? I don't know. They might sell out the whole thing, including Discovery, which I don't see why they would, because they seem to be making, at least according to David Zaslav, they seem to be making gains. Although he could just be posturing in those investment calls and earnings calls and all of that. So who honestly knows at this point? Who honestly knows? But let's see what other news there is. I don't think there's anything else worth talking about. And I think I'm going to do a wrap-up segment and then call it a video. All right. Indie Comics Showcase. See, there you go. I like what Bleeding Fool is doing here. They've got an Indie Comics Showcase talking about what's going on. That's cool. That is very cool. Have our viewers coping with the Hollywood strikes. What is this title? Have our viewers? Mandy Parker. Mandy, you gotta spell check that, ma'am. Have our viewers coping with the Hollywood strikes? So for those who don't know, I'm not going to read this. You'll have to go and read it on your own. It's over on Bleeding Fool. But the thing with the strikes is we thought they were all over because the WGA seemed to get everything it wants. But SAG-AFTRA started making some more demands, and then they brought everything back to a screeching halt. They want more from the streamers. That's why they got a picture of these streaming services looming over the Hollywood Hills there. And that is part of the problem, is they went to the negotiating table and they said, well, we want a certain percentage of streaming, way more than they deserve. It's still a minimal amount, but it's still way more than they deserve. See, here's the thing about streaming. The studios provide the money for the infrastructure, for the IT team to run it, for the buildings that contain all the servers and offices and whatever else that they need. The actors provide none of this. They are just acting in a contractually obligated manner, the same that they would for a TV show or movie. What right do they have to streaming revenue? Every time it's played, they want to cut? That is totally unrealistic. That's basically what they're asking for. Every time it's streamed, they want to cut. And that could be millions of people. It could be thousands of people. It could be millions. It could be billions. It could be trillions of people who press play on those given shows or movies. So no, that would make them multi-billionaires, which some of them already are. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. There is no way they're getting a cut of that. The studios deserve that money. And I'm not on anybody's side with these strikes, by the way. I hope they go on in perpetuity. I think it's better for independent creators. But they do not deserve a cut of that revenue. I'm sorry, they don't. I'm not sorry, because the ones that are asking for it are the millionaires. They're not the little people. The little people aren't going to get that, even if they get that deal. The little people are going to get breadcrumbs, as they always do. It's what I confirmed at the beginning of all this. This isn't about the little people. They're using the little people like they always do to get what they want, which are more multi-millions. They want fortunes on top of their fortunes. They really think that they're worth that much, which I don't think they are. I don't. But anyways, I'm going to do a wrap-up segment here. And for my wrap-up segment, I'm just going to say something very brief, which is I've been thinking a lot about nostalgia. With the entertainment culture war going on as long as it has, I have been very frustrated with the state of entertainment. I've been spending most of my time watching old commercials for entertainment from the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. Excuse me as I take another drink of water. I've been doing that for the majority of my entertainment, and I've come to the conclusion, because I'm always reading the comments, and people are saying largely the same things, which is, what has happened to entertainment? Why has things changed? Why does the modern world and the entertainment landscape feel so different? Well, I've talked ad nauseum about wokeness, and that is definitely a problem, because that is a short way of encompassing all of the diversity, equity, and inclusion Gestapo, because it is a Gestapo. They are forcing this stuff onto people in an unnatural and frankly racist and discriminatory way, while claiming to be anti-racist and anti-discriminatory. That's part of the problem. The other problem is the culture as a whole has become more tribal. It's gone back to being more tribal. In the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, we had just broken away from things like systemic racism, and we were starting to make inroads within tribes, within cultures. People were standing shoulder to shoulder. They weren't always getting along, but they were doing just fine. But then certain identitarian groups started to pop up in the 2010s and started to demand to be seen and represented, and they pushed their way into entertainment, and now they're demanding everything. They're demanding to be dominant even though they aren't even in majorities. And so now everybody is being forced to deal with this whether they like it or not. And a lot of people won't admit it because they agree with the woke groups that are pushing all of this. But that is what has happened, is that the culture has shifted. People, certain subsects, the woke subsects, have forced their way into entertainment, into culture, and have demanded that everybody kowtow to them. That is what has changed. Before, there was not one dominant sort of culture that everybody was kowtowing to. There was just a culture that people universally agreed on for the most part. And there was disagreement even within that, but it wasn't like it is today, where everybody is being forced to bow down to this woke mob, where everything has to represent everybody, and everybody has to see themselves in everything ad nauseum. That's been their rallying cry for over a decade now, and it's really exhausting. So my point is this. the culture has changed. I miss the 90s and early 2000s that I grew up in. I grew up primarily in the early 2000s, but I was born in 92. Everybody who's seen my channel should know this by now because I say it over a billion times. I apologize for being so redundant. But the reality is this: the entertainment landscape and the cultural landscape are intertwined. They're one and the same. And the cultural landscape has reflected the entertainment landscape. The entertainment landscape has become dominated, absolutely dominated by one group of cultural ideologies, one group of tribes who has said, we want everything to reflect us and how we see the world. And if you're not on board with us, you can take a hike. And that is what has killed the modern entertainment culture. That is what's changed it. That's what has made it depressing. Because you're being told constantly by these people how bad the world is because not everybody will kowtow to them. They are perpetual victims. They are victims in perpetuity. They are constantly crying. They are constantly asking people to feel bad for them, to rally for them, to get angry for them, and how much better of people that we all need to be by accepting their ideals. That is what has changed. That wasn't happening in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. There were small groups of people that were advocating for their own causes, but they weren't dominant. And they had no way to be dominant because the internet was not yet a thing. Excuse me. All right, I am starting to lose my voice, so I am going to have to wrap it up here. But my point is, the culture has changed. You're not crazy. We're having to all weather this storm together and figure out ways around it. And I pointed out tonight several examples of independent comic and book creators who are doing just that. And I hope you're inspired by that. So thank you very much for watching, folks. This has been Super Koopa TV at night. I will see you guys hopefully sometime next week, and hopefully it'll be a stream with less connection issues. Thank you very much for watching. God bless.